Hello and welcome to this episode of the Road to Rec League podcast. I'm Callum, and in today's episode we're going to be talking a little bit of Jets, but also it's been 10 weeks since I started this journey, so we're going to have a chat about that. So let's start with the Jets. Not an awful lot for me to run through, honestly, because I haven't quite gotten around to watching as much as I'd hoped at this point in the season. We're 2 games in. The first game I was exhausted, had a glass of wine before bed, which was a bit of a mistake because I ended up dropping in and out of the game. I was there for the last couple of goals, and I did catch up on the highlights, but did miss, thankfully, probably the worst 2 periods of hockey of the year so far, which is great. So, I'm glad I missed them in a sense, but I obviously didn't get to learn a lot from that. What I did go back and watch a lot of a couple times was the Jonathan Toews entrance and the banner sort of recognition piece. And I just wanted to touch on those a little bit because I know that it's a really proud hockey market where it really dominates the community, and I think that's such an awesome thing. So seeing 2 banners raised at the same time, or revealed at the same time, I should say, was awesome, and I'm kind of looking online to see if I can get myself a pair of the mini banners that have been floating around. Oh, I've seen some on social media. I'm assuming they're for a game. I'd like to be able to grab a couple. I'll see if they're on the store. Because I actually think it's something really worth celebrating. I mean, you can look at the fact that it was a good opportunity to maybe go after a cup and we didn't quite get it done. But I see that as, small market town does quite an incredible thing over the regular season. And as a European sports fan, I'm always going to value that probably a little higher than North Americans. But winning the Central, which has Dallas and Colorado, getting out that first round with the Manitoba Miracle, I think there's a lot to be proud of in that season. So it was lovely to see, and I'm looking forward to getting something to represent that year hung up in the office. And then the other half that I wanted to touch on, before we get into, I guess, a quick look at the results, is the Jonathan Toews entrance. And I could put that into two distinct moments for me watching that happen. Obviously, the crowd seemed to go wild, which is amazing. And you see the guy come out, and he's all serious, all business. And there's an intensity in his eyes. No, I haven't followed his career. This is the first time I'm seeing him play professional hockey. But he carries this level of intensity that I think is something to be inspired by, frankly. And maybe you don't see everywhere. But he had this burning intensity as he came out on the ice, like he was going to conquer the world the first time he got back out there. And then the cheer starts to get louder, and you just see him break character for a moment, almost, and start to smile and take it in. And I think that was a really lovely sort of, two emotions that are, diametrically opposed in some ways, that kind of relaxed joy and that intense competitiveness. And you got to see both of that sort of in both those emotions in such a short period of time. I'm genuinely optimistic. I guess we'll probably touch on that a little bit with some of the results, but I think it's going to take him a bit of time to get up to speed. But you can't say there weren't goosebumps and chills in those kind of moments where the hometown hero makes a triumphant return, sort of thing. And I think it's awesome to see, and I can't wait to be looking at that over the course of the season. As for that game, obviously not ideal. I mean, some good bits to pick out. Kyle Connor had a hat trick. Can't argue with that. That's pretty good. The one goal where he's right hand side of the net and kind of receives the puck and just almost outweights Ottinger, who moves and goes low early, and then he takes a step back and lifts it. I just thought, that was so good. Like the composure to be able to pull that off in that moment was unreal. And that's, I guess, what you get from those elite shooters, knowing when to shoot and when not to shoot. But it was pretty cool to watch. And then obviously a couple of short-handed goals, which is great, but ultimately wasn't enough, losing 5-4 to Dallas. But a really good effort in the third period to come back, so can't really fault the guys for that. And then the second game, which was against the Kings. Now, I have to confess again, I didn't watch this. I caught up with the highlights, but I listened to the whole game while I was at the Bristol Pitbulls hockey game yesterday. So I'm recording this of Sunday morning, fresh after a workout with a cup of tea next to me, or a cup of coffee actually this morning, which is rather unusual for me. And so yesterday night, while I was watching the Pitbulls play, unfortunately they didn't quite get the result. The Jets pulled out a 3-2 win over the Kings. And given that last year they really had the team's number. They just seemed to choke offense on from the Jets' offense, and it was just really frustrating to watch almost. And it was nice to see that we managed to break them down a couple of times. All right, it was tighter than it maybe could have been, but that first period was really typical Jets. Second period not so much. Felt like the Kings kind of picked up some momentum, and then the late period goal from Shifley, and then him picking up the tip, which was a really nice way of. I love net front tips. I think they're fantastic, and I think when you see it be all purposeful, where Morrissey purposefully shoots it wide for the tip and Shifley tips it in. I mean, that kind of thing where you go, that's a structured play rather than just being in the way and it bounces off your leg. I think those sorts of tips are really cool to watch. So, obviously the result's great as well. Can't argue with that. Maybe made it a bit difficult for themselves towards the end, but you know what? 500 start when over 2 games when your players are injured, and we've not gone up against teams that are expected to be low down in the table. We've gone up against Dallas, who many people are making a favourite for the Central and if not the Cup. So that's obviously a tough team to play against, and the comeback against from 5-1 down is still impressive to get to 5-4. And then the Kings, who already had our number last year. So I'm optimistic. I do think there's going to be some ugly hockey between now and the return of Sandberg and Lowry and Perfetti. I think some of it's going to be a little bit rudimentary, and I do think there are going to be some embarrassing moments on D, because ultimately Sandberg is a proper defensive defenseman, possibly one of the best in the league at that role. So missing him and having to play Stan or Fleury outside of their sheltered minutes is, it's not ideal for the team. But they're making do and mending, which is all you can ask of a team at the moment. And if they exit this first, 10, 15 games above 500, waiting for the return of a couple of really key characters, that's going to be, I would say, a successful start to the season. So we'll obviously follow more closely. There's a couple of games next week, big 4-game week the week after that. So like I say, probably more Jet stuff to come, and I'll hopefully stay up a little bit later and watch some more of it. Islanders on Monday. I happen to be at a work away day for the whole day, including the evening, so I might not even get to watch that live. I'll probably end up catching up on that in the hotel room. So is what it is, right? Is what it is. But that's it for the Jet stuff. We're going to just transition over to talking about my 10-week review. So despite only recording, I think this is the 5th episode of the podcast now, I've actually been on this sort of hockey learning journey for the last 10 weeks in various guises. I mean, whether that be me putting in skating practice, getting fit, actually doing the adult learn to plays. I think I'm on to my 10th week now, which is kind of exciting. And so what I wanted to do was just do a bit of a review of those 10 weeks, sort of look back, be a little bit reflective, and also think about what I want to get from, say, the next 10 weeks, kind of where I want to be and what next steps I want to take, and also what step I've taken, I guess, to try and keep progressing. So and I think to look at the next 10 weeks, we've got to go back a little bit further than that. So I decided at the start of the year, I set my objectives, right? So I like doing this in my personal life. I quite like setting myself objectives. I think it keeps me focused on achieving some things. An example of something from a couple of years back, I started skateboarding, and then the year after I started, I said I wanted to land a heel flip before the end of the year. And then after I did that in the middle of the summer, I decided I wanted to land a kickflip, and I got that one on Christmas Day. So cutting it a little bit fine, and I hope not to necessarily cut it that fine for this objective, but I like to set myself goals in a year. And for me, for hockey, the big goal was be involved in a scrimmage or an organised scrimmage or an organised game, as part of a team, essentially. So whether that be a one-off in the scrimmage or actually sign up to a rec league team and be in a game or a scrim with them, I'm happy either which way. I just want to play an actual game of hockey, have a role, and play my role, essentially. That's kind of what I'd like to do. Find out what that's like. So I set that goal at the start of the year, and I started skating properly in the summer, because I did pick up some secondhand ice hockey skates, and they didn't really fit particularly well. So I could only do 20 minutes of skating at a time before I started getting foot pain. That all changed in July, which I recognise now as a good sort of 4 months ago. And so I started effectively from then. I did skate a few times before that. I could probably count the number of hours as 3 or 4 max. Just couldn't find the time and wasn't comfortable on the skates. But as soon as I got the new skates, I've been addicted ever since. So I set my goals, and my goal was to do all of that sort of good stuff that I've mentioned. And then about 10 weeks ago, I decided to say fuck it. I bought the remaining bits of hockey gear that I'd slowly been accruing, and I signed up to my first adult learn to play. And that was a real eye opener for me because it kind of really exposed my skating and how far behind I was on that. And I think I knew I was going to be in the bottom 1 or 2%, and it confirmed it. It definitely confirmed it. And off the back of that, I really knew what to focus on, right? And it also got me thinking about things I hadn't been able to practice on my own. So something I have done is I've used inline skates from the beginning of the year. I've had a wooden stick and a green biscuit, and I've been doing simple, like, puck handling stuff at an industrial estate just outside my house, or at the seafront where I stay for work. So I've been doing things. It's not like I've been entirely idle at the start of the year, but you can only get so much from those kind of activities. And what I slowly realized was that I was going to get exposure over these adult learn to play sessions in things that I can't do on my own. So that is, ultimately stick battles, shooting. You can do a little bit of shooting, but I don't quite have the setup. I am actually doing a bit of research into how I could maybe turn a part of my garden into a shooting practice place. But we'll see how that goes. But anyway, yeah. So I was able to do a little bit of work. I kind of identified, going at adult learn to play, what I needed to catch up on. So over the last 10 weeks, I have done every single week. I've done the adult learn to play sessions, which have been fantastic. That's an hour of organised training, usually 40 minutes of drills, 20 minutes of scrimmaging, or thereabouts. So I've done that every single week. I have skated at public skate most weeks. I didn't this week, but I did 3 the week before. So, it's probably on average 1.5 times a week, probably for an hour or so. I think I've racked up now 32 hours on ice. I still need to go and actually calculate that. I've been keeping a track because I think it's fun, keeping track of it because I think it's fun to do that. But yeah, so I've obviously put a good amount of effort in over the last 10 weeks, as much as time and money permits. And what have I got from that? Well, 10 weeks ago, I couldn't skate backwards. I couldn't transition forwards to backwards, and I was pretty lacking confidence. So in my first adult learn to play session, I could tell I was really feeling it out and sort of being a perimeter player, so to speak. So I was skating, around the edge of the plays, picking up loose bits here and there, but not really getting stuck in. And then 2 weeks ago, I had my first proper. I sort of reflected on it. I was getting stuck in. I was going in to try and win the puck. I was getting my body in the way more aggressively, whereas before I was being a little bit more cautious. I was still putting myself in shooting and passing lanes and trying to be disruptive, but I wasn't, forechecking, as an example. I was more sort of loitering around the slot and the blue line, and I was then trying to position, because I knew getting back on D was going to be a struggle for me skating-wise, so I kind of tried to give myself a bit more runway. And look, it's still a struggle for me. I'm still not a very good skater, frankly. You're not going to pick up all the skills in the world in 10 weeks. But I'm more confident, and I just feel like if I get stuck in more, I'm going to have more of an impact on my shift. So, so I've been able to pick up these skills that I didn't have. I can now skate backwards. I'm really proud of that, actually, because, roll the clock back to February, and I went to go and look at a rec league practice session, and I came away from that going, I will not go to one of these until I can skate backwards. Now I can, and I'm hugely proud of that. And I can do it with a stick, and I can do it while, just about while having a puck. It's a little bit ropey, but I can get by. And that's, it means I've got room for growth, obviously. So that's going to be exciting. I can do crossovers on ice now. I couldn't do that 10 weeks ago, which is brilliant. And I'm just feeling a little bit better on my feet in general. Also, I've got that recognition of where my limitations are. And I get a lot of value from that personally. Me knowing where I struggle is important to me. It definitely gives me something to work on, but it also means I know how to apply myself in a game situation, hopefully in ways that won't expose my weaknesses all the time. Now, in terms of the hockey progress, if you like, I feel like I'm really finding my place on the ice now. Positionally, passing and stuff is fine. Shooting is meh. I get it on target most of the time, but it is, lacks power, and that's why I kind of talked about wanting to do a little bit of a shooting setup somewhere in the garden, maybe not in the house. That would be a little bit bold, but something like that would be really beneficial for me to be able to work on that skill, I think. And And I'm also getting involved again in things like stick battles, puck battles, trying to win possession. That stuff is again coming to me now that I didn't have it before when I was just skating around on my own green biscuit wooden stick, but I am starting to experience that, and I'm starting to feel more confident in that, which is really cool. And I'm having so much more fun with it now that I'm able to be a bit more stuck into. It's amazing how much of a difference being involved makes to how you feel you're contributing. But I'm loving it, absolutely loving it. Now, alongside all of this hockey, I've been working on my fitness. Now, I mentioned this in maybe the first or second episode of the podcast. I recognized skating was a weakness, so I needed to find my comparative advantage, and that for me was always going to be getting fit, because that's something I can do, regardless of access to ice time. And not everyone prioritizes that. Let's be honest. It's recreational hockey. People aren't training for that necessarily. But for me, it was my opportunity to go, okay, well, I'm never going to run out of steam on the ice. I'm never going to be tired in a shift. I just don't want to be, gassed in a shift. I'd rather be, in the best physical condition I can be in, and I want to get stronger. I want to have stronger legs, stronger core, stronger arms to win more puck battles. To, if it's the difference between me winning and losing a stick lift or something, or being able to have a strong enough stick to poke something away with one hand, that's the kind of stuff I figured I'd be able to get to by being fitter and stronger. So over the last 10 weeks, I've lost 4 and a bit kilos, around about 11 pounds. I actually have a defined bicep for the first time in my life. And I genuinely, I can't explain how unusual that is for me. It's about as unusual as me having this coffee at the same time as recording, because I'm normally a tea man, but I actually have a bicep. It's not very big, but it's there. And my cardio fitness is in a really good place. Look, I'm not the fittest I've ever been in my life, but I'm much trimmer. I'm down to 82 kilos, pretty much 82 and a bit, which for someone of 6 foot isn't too bad. And I think I've talked about that being my target weight, but I lean 82, not quite where I'm at the minute. But my cardio fitness is way stronger. The second session of Adult Learn to Play, I almost fainted. Now, I'm working hard in a shift, and I'm not exhausted by the end of the session. And other people are starting to pant and sigh while I'm feeling comfortable, which I'm really happy with. And I need to keep pushing that. I think I need to be in the best physical shape I can be in to maximize what I can offer. And you know what? Aside from the physical conditioning and the hockey progress and the skating progress, I want to talk a little bit about the mental space. I am probably some of the happiest I've been in a long time. Part of that is going to be actually being involved in a team sport and being in a community and stuff. And I think from a sustained or sort of sustainable happiness, I'm in a position where I'm doing quite well. Now, I've not to get too personal. It was World Mental Health Day the other day, but I've had my difficulties over the years. With counselling, medication, stuff like that, trying to sort that out, which is great. But I'm in a position today where I walk around more often than not. I have a smile on my face, or I have a positive disposition, and I do attribute team sport, getting active, and looking after my health as a part of that. Obviously there's the mental side of it too, and you do need to still focus on that. It's not like you can fitness yourself happy, but it is making a difference. And the organized structure of it all, I think it's just worth mentioning. Sometimes it's good to reflect on stuff like that too, and just go, I'm in a good place. I'm loving what hockey's giving me at the moment, and that's really cool. It's nice to be able to share that as well. So what's next? What are the next 10 weeks going to look like? Well, I have reached out to a local rec league team. So someone made a comment a couple of weeks back at Adult Learn to Play, suggesting that I was maybe in a position to throw my hat in the ring. It would be a lower division team, maybe lower half of the lower division team. And I certainly wouldn't be a standout player on any team, frankly. But it was an opportunity, hopefully, waiting for me. So I have reached out, and there is another rec league team that's recently just been stood up that I might reach out to as well, because I haven't quite heard back yet from the first one. And it has been a week. So we'll see how it goes. But I am determined to get involved in organised hockey. And the good news about all of that is it would mean that the rink is a little bit closer for practice, which is great. So at the moment, I'm travelling an hour and a half, hour and 45. This would be just under an hour away, which is helpful. And it would also mean that I could get involved in 1 or 2 practices a week. I could start to form a connection with the same group of people, and you can talk about lines and stuff like that, and shaping a team. So it's that sort of thing where you think, okay, well, there's an opportunity there to get involved in stuff like that, and I'll meet my target by the end of the year, in theory, if I can join a team because they have organized games. So it's that sort of thing where it feels like a really big next step for me, and a really critical one. I keep working on the things that have, brought me progress over the last 10 weeks, and that's public skates, that's, organized hockey practices, whether that be with a rec league team or adult learn to play, and then fitness and nutrition, and making sure that I still enjoy myself, clearly, because that's something that I want to take away from this. So that's a big thing for the next 10 weeks. I'm hoping in the next 10 weeks to hit my weight loss goal. So I wanted to get just below 80 kilos. So I'll take 79.9, frankly. So 79.9 kilos. I've still got a few to go. So if I can knock off the last 3 kilos, say, or it would be 2 and a bit, actually. If I can knock off the last 2 and a bit kilograms, get to a position where I can then start to figure out how I gain my weight back in muscle. Because I don't want to just... doing both is really hard. So I kind of want to lose some weight, gain some muscle, lose a bit more weight, gain some more muscle, and kind of alternate it. It'll also keep things interesting for me because it'll change the type of workouts I do. It'll change the structure of my diet, and that'll keep me interested in the process still, I think. So if I can alternate every sort of 3 or 4 weeks, or 4 weeks maybe in the future, that might actually yield some benefit for me. So yeah, I want to say hit my weight loss target, and then I guess outside of that, it's just continue to progress the actual skill set I have. So I could talk about wanting to achieve an outcome like joining a rec league team. But really, I want to also focus on the things that are going to get me there and the things that are going to improve my game, like my inputs. So the skills I'm developing, I want to be able to comfortably cross over, in 10 weeks' time. I think that'd be really nice to be able to do that in a game situation. I'm not there by any stretch. I'm not there comfortably skating backwards in a game situation, even though I can do it, and I can do it in a training drill, and I can do it in a public skate. In a game situation, it's different. So I need to keep pushing my skill sets to be comfortable doing that. And that's kind of where I think I want to get to. Let's, review it in 10 weeks' time again, and I can do my 20-week review, and I think that'd be a really interesting look back, and moment of reflection. Honestly, that's kind of it for this episode, a little bit shorter than the other couple, but it's been really fun to share my progress, and talk a little bit of Jets hockey. I think there'll probably be a bit more focus on stuff like the Jets next time. I also want to catch up on the NHL Face-Off documentary that's available on Netflix. I watched the first episode, and I have some thoughts already, but I figured I'd save a bit, kind of the rest of them as a bit of a review. I can do that as an episode. And I've got a couple of other ideas planned for future episodes too. I'm hoping I might be able to organise a guest at some point, whether that be a local one to me or one from a little further afield. But anyway, thanks ever so much for listening. Of course, if wherever you're listening to, don't forget to leave a comment, review, like, subscribe, etc., etc. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Until next time, see you later.